I've worked night dispatch for over a decade. Quiet hours between midnight and 5 a.m. are usually predictable. Domestic disturbances, DUIs, the occasional animal control call. Nothing that ever sticks with you past shift change. But one night in early November, something happened that I still haven't been able to explain. And I've stopped trying. It was 3:07 a.m. when the radio cracked to life with a static burst followed by a voice, my voice saying, Unit 12 responding, Code Echo, West Ridge Asylum. Now for context, we don't have a Code Echo. Not officially. And West Ridge Asylum? That place had been shuttered for years, condemned, fenced off, and forgotten. It was a creepy landmark on the outskirts of our county. Teens used to dare each other to sneak in, but even that stopped once it started deteriorating. The structure was collapsing in places. No electricity, no maintenance, just raccoons and mold. I paused, unsure if I'd misheard. Maybe a prank? A rogue signal bouncing from somewhere else? Then I noticed the call was logged from my own badge number. And here's the thing, I hadn't touched my radio. Confused, I checked the CAD logs. No outgoing transmission for me. Nothing on my console even hinted that a signal had been sent. But there it was, Unit 12 responding, badge hashtag 3712, my badge number. I could have ignored it. Should have probably, but something about it itched at me. A cold, creeping curiosity. Against my better judgment, I radioed in that I was taking a personal check and drove out to West Ridge. It was a 15-minute drive, pitch black the whole way except for the occasional deer reflected in the high beams. The asylum sat at the end of a cracked access road, its rusted gates hanging open like broken teeth. The perimeter fencing was warped and torn in places. No lights, no signs of life, except one thing. A faint glow on the second floor. It wasn't steady like a floodlight or emergency beacon. It flickered, soft and erratic, almost like a candle, but too bright for that. I left the engine running and approached on foot, flashlight out. The front entrance was boarded shut, but someone had pried a side door loose. I ducked in and was immediately hit by the smell of rot and mildew. Dust coated everything inside. Furniture still bolted to the floors, files scattered across broken desks. Water dripped somewhere deep within the halls. I made my way toward the central staircase, guided by that faint light flickering above. The second floor was colder, unnaturally so. My breath fogged in front of me. I could feel the old building groaning beneath my boots, like it resented being disturbed. The light was coming from what used to be an administrative office. The door creaked open without resistance. Inside was a desk covered in paperwork. Not ancient yellowed pages, but crisp white reports. Fresh ink. I stepped closer and my blood went cold. It was my handwriting, my name, my signature, my notes. The first page described my arrival at the building. Time stamped correctly. The second described me walking to the second floor. Each line matched what I'd just done, step for step. The third page was half filled. I read as far as it had been written. Officer Drummond enters admin office. Finds unknown documents on desk. Begins reading line by line. Then it stopped. Below that, one last line. Drummond, stop reading. I backed away, heart hammering. My flashlight flickered. The overhead light, the one that shouldn't exist, cut out completely, plunging the room into pitch black. I reached for my radio. Static. Then, I heard my own voice. Not echoing, not a recording. Just a clear, calm statement behind me. Code Echo confirmed. I turned so fast, I slipped on the dusty floor, hit my elbow on the edge of the desk. The room was empty. My flashlight flicked back to life, but nothing was there. I sprinted down those stairs and didn't stop until I was back in the cruiser. Engine still running, dash lights glowing like nothing had happened. I didn't file a report, didn't say a word when I got back to the station. But that wasn't the end. Since that night, my patrol car radio occasionally activates by itself, always between 3 and 3:15 a.m., with a voice that sounds exactly like mine. Sometimes it mutters nonsense. Sometimes it recites things I haven't said yet, but will. I once heard it predict a traffic stop 5 minutes before it happened, down to the license plate number. And every now and then, while reviewing reports or logging calls, I find notes, written in my handwriting, that I don't remember writing. They reference locations I haven't visited yet. situations that haven't happened. Some are small things, but others, one of them mentioned a death. Mine. I've considered turning in my badge more times than I care to admit. But every time I get close, a new page shows up. Fresh ink. Sometimes with a warning. Sometimes with a date. I haven't gone back to Westridge, and I never will. But part of me wonders, did I leave something behind there? Or did something follow me back? Either way, I've stopped reading my own reports too closely, because I'm afraid of what the next line might say. Story 2. There's an old, narrow bridge out in Kilmarnock County. No official name on the maps. Locals just call it the Pass. It's a single-lane crossing built decades ago over a shallow, muddy ravine. Structurally sound, supposedly, but we're told never to patrol it alone at night. No formal rule. Just one of those things every seasoned officer whispers to the rookies. If it's after midnight and you get call out there, wait for backup. The reason? Hard to pin down. Some say it creaks when there's no wind. Others say your radio cuts out in the center. One guy claimed he saw someone hanging by the railing, only for them to vanish when he got out. I always thought it was exaggerated. Rural cops like to scare the newbies, and I wasn't buying into ghost stories. I'd done the bridge during the day dozens of times. It's quiet, empty, honestly kind of boring. Then came the night I pulled the short straw. It was late fall. Leaves had mostly dropped, and mist clung low to the road like something alive. Dispatch asked me to check on a stalled vehicle reportedly abandoned halfway across the bridge. I acknowledged the call and headed out, not thinking much of it. The fog got thicker as I neared the pass. Trees lining the road loomed like jagged teeth, and my high beams barely cut through. Still, I was calm. Tired, maybe, ready to wrap up the shift. I rolled slowly onto the bridge. Boards creaked under the cruiser's weight. Not unusual. But then everything fell off. The air grew heavier. Still, even frogs and night birds stopped making noise. No wind, no bugs, just the crunch of my tires and the quiet, rhythmic groan of the bridge beneath me. I reached the midpoint, and that's when the dash cam blinked out. Just gone. No static, no low battery, just black. I tapped it. Nothing. Then something passed behind the cruiser. On foot. I caught the movement in my side mirror, a blur of dark fabric and pale skin. I froze, watching the mirror. No second movement. No sound of footsteps. Just that thick, suffocating silence. I got out. Don't ask me why. Instinct, I guess. Cop reflex. I shined my flashlight around. The bridge was empty. The railings on either side had gaps wide enough for someone to drop down into the ravine. Sure, but there was no splash, no rustling leaves, no sound at all. And that's when I noticed something I still can't explain. Every time I took a step, I heard too, like someone pacing exactly in sync with me. Step, step, mine. Then the echo. Only the bridge shouldn't echo. It's wooden, wide open, no walls to bounce sound. But the footsteps double mine perfectly. If I stopped, they stopped. If I turned, they hesitated. My heart pounded so loud it drowned out my own breathing. I started backing toward the cruiser, flashlight shaking. And just as I reached the door, I caught a reflection in the glass. A figure, standing right behind me. I spun around. Nothing. I slammed the door shut, threw the car in reverse, and backed off the bridge so fast I nearly clipped the railing. I didn't stop until I was a quarter-mile down the road with my high beams cutting through trees again. My hand was still trembling as I pulled into HQ later that night. I told the sergeant I'd had some camera trouble and needed to log the dash footage manually. I loaded the SD card into the system and almost dropped my coffee. There was only one frame saved. Not a video, not a clip, just one still image. It showed the driver's side of my cruiser on the bridge. The timestamp matched the exact moment I'd stepped out. Standing next to the door was a woman in uniform. She was facing the camera head-on, expression blank, blonde hair tucked beneath her patrol cap, flashlight at her hip. She looked exactly like me, except for one thing. Her badge had no number, just a blank, polished surface where my ID should have been. I printed the frame and stared at it for days. I showed it to no one. At first, I wondered if someone had been messing with me. Maybe a clever rookie with editing skills. But the file had no metadata tampering. It wasn't doctored. It was raw footage, time-stamped, Internal memory only. And the face? It wasn't just similar, it was mine. Down to the faint scar over my right eyebrow. The faint freckle under my chin. Details you don't notice until they're staring back at you, wrong. A week later, I started having dreams. Always the same. I'm standing on the bridge. It's dead silent. I step forward and hear a second set of boots behind me. I turn around and she's there, wearing my uniform, holding my flashlight. No badge number. She never speaks. She just waits. Like she's waiting for me to finish something she started. Last month, I finally told the sergeant I won't patrol the bridge anymore. Didn't give a reason, and thankfully he didn't ask. He just nodded, like maybe he already knew. Now every time I drive past the pass, even in daylight, I slow down just enough to glance at the planks. They still creak, even when there's no wind. No weight. And sometimes, I swear I see footprints appear in the dust. Just one set, leading halfway across, then stopping, like someone's waiting for me to join her. Story 3. Every station has its quirks, creaky pipes, busted vending machines, maybe a chair no one sits in anymore. But our station in Barksdale? It has Locker 108. It sits at the far end of the oldest wing, down past records, past the unused showers, right where the lights always seem just a little dimmer. That hallway smells like mildew and iron, the kind of rot that settles in for good and doesn't leave. Nobody uses Locker 108. It's rusted shut most days. The door hangs slightly off its hinge, warped like it took a blow years ago and never healed right. It doesn't lock anymore, but it sticks just enough to make you yank twice if you want to open it. Everyone avoids it. Doesn't hold gear. Doesn't hold anything. Except maybe something else. I didn't think much of it at first. I've been with the department for 13 years. Superstitions come and go. A lot of them start with an old-timer trying to freak out a rookie. But this wasn't one of those stories. A few months back, I was pulling a late shift. Quiet night. Paperwork heavy. Just me, Jenkins, and the night janitor in the building. Around 2:30 a.m., I took a break to stretch my legs. Made a loop through the old wing, mostly out of habit. It was quiet, as usual, dim and cold, the way it always is back there. Then I heard it, a noise from the end of the hall, like a soft thunk, followed by something scraping lightly, metal on metal. It was coming from the row of lockers. I walked up slowly, flashlight in hand. As I got closer, I felt it before I saw anything. A strange warmth like walking past someone who'd just been standing there. The air near Locker 108 was warmer than the rest of the corridor. I don't mean less cold. I mean warm, like body heat. I pulled the door open. It groaned but gave way. The locker was empty. Nothing inside but that same odd warmth and the faintest smell of sweat, rust, and something sour, like old breath trapped in a paper bag. I stared at it for a minute, then shook it off. Probably just heat trapped from a busted pipe or something behind the wall. I closed it up and went back to my desk. The next morning, something wasn't right. I reached into my holster before stepping into roll call. Routine check. Empty. My service weapon was gone. Panic hit me like a gut punch. I retraced every step from the night before, checked my cruiser, my desk drawer, even the locker I actually use. Nothing. Then I remembered the locker. I sprinted back to the old hallway. The door to 108 was hanging slightly ajar. Inside was my firearm, placed neatly on a metal shelf, magazine out, safety on, like someone had handled it carefully, respectfully, intimately. But I hadn't gone near 108 since the night before, and I sure as hell hadn't put it there. I filed a report, of course, said I'd accidentally misfiled the weapon during a long shift, found it the next morning. Technically true, left out the part about the warmth, about the noise, about how the locker felt watched. I wish that was the end of it. It wasn't. Every few nights since, I've heard that same scraping sound again, always around 2:30 a.m., sometimes a little earlier, sometimes later. Each time, I tell myself I'm imagining it. I ignore it, keep my head down, but eventually, curiosity, or maybe something else, pulls me back. Sometimes the locker's wide open, other times just cracked. Sometimes it's empty, but not always. Once I found a lighter inside, brass-plated, engraved with initials I didn't recognize. JH looked military issue. When I asked around, nobody claimed it. I left it on the evidence shelf, tagged and logged. The next night, it was back in the locker. Another time, there was a crumpled photograph. Black and white. Two men in uniform shaking hands outside what looked like a World War II-era barracks. The back was blank. No names. No date. Just folded corners and the faint scent of smoke. I brought that one home. 3 days later, I woke up with the photo sitting on my nightstand, burned at the edges. I swear to God, I had locked it in my desk drawer at work. Then there was the night I found a single dog tag. Not mine. Not current issue. Just a tag. No chain. Deeply scratched. Barely readable. The only thing clearly legible was one word. Property. I didn't take that one with me. Lately, it's not just the items that feel strange. It's the feeling that comes with them. That warmth? It's always there now when the locker's open. Always that same unnatural heat. And something else too, like a pressure behind my eyes, like I'm being observed. Judged. Some nights, when I approach the locker, I swear I hear someone whisper my name. Not loud. Not urgent. Just present. Bram. Last week, I brought Jenkins with me. Said I wanted a second pair of eyes. We waited outside the old wing, just before 2:30. The sound came right on time. Metal shifting. Hinge creaking. We turned the corner and saw it. Locker 108, slowly swinging open, as if pushed from the inside. There was nothing inside, but Jenkins turned to me, pale as a ghost. He said, "Do you smell that?" I nodded. Warmth. Sweat. Rust. And something older. Now, even when I avoid it, that hallway finds me. When I sit at my desk, I sometimes find unfamiliar items tucked under my reports. A playing card. An old shoelace. Once a cracked tooth. They vanish if I leave them too long. But 108 it remembers, and it always wants something in return. Story 4. Sector 9 has always been one of those places we dread pulling a call for, especially at night. It's the oldest district in the city. Mostly forgotten industrial space. Rusted train tracks, collapsing warehouses, storage yards that haven't seen inventory since the early 90s. It smells like diesel, scorched rubber, and time left to rot. We get a lot of false alarms there, mostly motion sensors or ancient heat detectors that short out and send a call to dispatch. It's a known thing. Half the time, the fire department doesn't even roll unless someone visually confirms smoke or flame. It's that routine. So when the call came through just past midnight, heat alarm tripped in a condemned textile mill on Holcomb Avenue. I figure it was just another dud. I was on solo patrol. Standard. Quiet shift. I've been listening to an audiobook on the history of urban fires, weirdly enough. I just got to the part about how many cities were destroyed in the 1800s by one spark and the wrong kind of wind. Dispatch logged it as low priority. But I figured I'd swing by, check it out, clear the call. 5 minutes tops. When I pulled up to the building, I knew something was different. The mill sat behind a sagging chain-link fence. Most of the windows were broken, and the ones that weren't were layered in soot. But inside, I saw it. A soft, pulsing orange glow. Faint but steady, like light from a dying campfire, flickering behind glass. No smoke, no smell. Still, I called it in. Possible fire activity, requesting secondary unit, I said into the mic. No response. I tried again. Nothing but static. I gave it one more shot and then decided to go in and check it myself. The door to the mill was rusted halfway off its hinges. I had to shoulder it open. It groaned and scraped the floor like it hadn't moved in decades. The inside was colder than it should have been. Like freezer cold. I expected heat. If there was a fire somewhere, even a small one, there should have been warmth in the air. But the temperature dropped as I stepped in. The floor was tile, cracked, uneven, and, at one spot, soft under my boots. I looked down and realized I'd stepped on a melted patch. Like plastic or vinyl had bubbled and cooled over concrete. My boot stuck slightly before coming free with a sound like pulling tape off skin. There was no flame, no source for that glow. But on the far wall, I noticed something odd: soot. Fresh-looking. Fingerprints. Smears dragged upward, not down. Like someone had placed their hands against the wall and pulled themselves toward the ceiling. I moved in closer, scanning with my flashlight. The prints were all wrong. Too long. The spacing between the fingers was off. Some had more than 5. Then my shoulder mic crackled. At first, I thought it was the static from earlier. But then I heard it, clear as day, a voice I knew well. It said, "You're early, Maria." I froze. That voice didn't belong to anyone currently on duty. It belonged to Officer Carla Dean, my former partner. Carla died in a structural collapse in Sector 9 4 years ago. Same area, just 2 blocks over. She'd gone into a similar warehouse on a fire call and never came out. I radioed in again, trying to stay calm. Unit 14 requesting immediate backup. Possible intruder. Possible code 1090. Officer impersonation. No answer, but my flashlight flickered. I tapped it. It steadied. Then I heard footsteps. Not mine. Off to my left, deeper in the mill. Sharp, deliberate. I drew my sidearm and called out. "This is Officer Stokes with Barksdale PD. Identify yourself." Silence. I edged toward the corridor. The glow had faded now, replaced by flickering shadows. On the wall ahead, something was written in soot. Just one word. Stay. It wasn't there a moment ago. And beneath it, handprints. Dozens of them. Small, large, some pressed high like someone had climbed the walls. Others lower, dragging across the floor. My gut told me to listen, to stay. But something deeper, maybe pride or instinct, made me keep going. I passed a collapsed stairwell and stepped into what looked like an old furnace room. The walls were scorched black. There was no fire damage reported for this building, but the place looked like it had burned and reburned over and over again. And in the center of the room, there was a small pile of ash. Still smoking. No flames, just that low orange ember glow I'd seen from outside. As I stepped closer, my radio flared up again, just static. Then beneath it, whispering. Not in English. Not in anything I recognized. But rhythmic. Almost like chanting. And then, just as suddenly, silence. No footsteps. No whispers. Even the static stopped. The ember glow faded into nothing. I backed out slowly, keeping my weapon raised. I didn't run, but I wanted to. My body screamed for it. Every hair on my arms stood on end. My mouth was dry, and I could feel, not imagine, feel someone watching me. When I got back outside, I finally reached dispatch. They claimed they'd never lost my signal. Said there was no interference on their end. Claimed the call I'd logged was never received. I asked if they could confirm any other units near Sector 9 around the time of my visit. They said I was the only patrol assigned within 10 miles. I didn't tell them what I'd heard. Didn't mention Carla's voice. But I've looked through her case file a dozen times since that night. And in her last radio transmission, the one just before the warehouse collapsed, she said something strange. It's still archived in our internal reports. She said, "The fire's not out. It's waiting." No one knew what she meant at the time. Now I think I do. Whatever burns in Sector 9, it's not fire in the usual sense. It doesn't consume buildings. It consumes people, and it remembers the ones who left. Story 5. When you work long enough in law enforcement, especially in a rural district, you start to pick up little habits. Old ones. Traditions passed down without much explanation. You don't question them. You just carry them forward. One of ours is the deadband watch. There's a narrow slice of radio frequency, about 148.6 megahertz, we monitor out of pure superstition. No one uses it anymore. It's an old analog band that dates back to World War II. Before my time. Before most people's time. Officially, it's been silent since the late 70s. But at our department, we still scan it. Not on the official radios, mind you. There's a dedicated receiver in the back of the dispatch room. It's patched into an old speaker system mounted to the wall. Looks like something out of an antique shop. Yellowed plastic, dial tuning, frayed cable. Everyone jokes about tossing it, but no one ever does. We just keep listening. It hums mostly, a soft static that fades into the background. Like white noise. Peaceful almost. Until last month. That's when it changed. The first time I was on the overnight shift. It was quiet. 2 a.m. I was writing up a field report when the hum shifted, just slightly. A rise in pitch. Almost imperceptible, but enough to turn my head. Then it stopped completely. Silence. I figured the speaker had finally died. I leaned over to switch it off. That's when the number started. At first, it sounded like Morse code. Then a flat voice, mechanical, no emotion, started reciting numbers. In pairs. Slow, deliberate. 20, 14, 99, 33. It went on for about 10 seconds. Then it stopped. dead air again. I wrote it off as interference, maybe someone messing around with a signal jammer. Could have been a prank. This town has its share of bored teenagers and amateur radio nerds. But 3 nights later, it came back. This time I was ready. I hit record on my phone. Same sequence. Static, then numbers. But right at the end, a whisper slipped through the crackle. Thorny. That's what my mom used to call me. Thorny. No one else uses that name. Not since she passed. And it wasn't just the word, it was the voice. Hers. Soft. Loving. Like she was right behind me. I didn't sleep that night. I played the recording back a dozen times. It was there, faint but real. I brought it to our tech guy the next morning. He brushed it off as audio pareidolia, a brain trick like hearing voices in white noise. But he wouldn't play it out loud. He only listened through headphones. And when he finished, he looked uneasy, said, "Probably just your imagination." Then he handed my phone back like it was radioactive. The next week, I got permission to trace the signal. Part of me wanted to debunk it, prove it was just some rogue signal bouncing off a nearby repeater. The rational part of me. The other part, the one that grew up hearing backwoods stories about radios talking to the dead, wasn't so sure. The strongest signal pointed toward the northern edge of the county, near Larkspur Ridge. There's an old communications tower out there, used during the war for secure transmissions. It hasn't been operational in decades. Technically, it's supposed to be sealed off, but the fencing's rusted through and the lock on the gate was broken clean. I parked outside and walked the last 100 feet through brush. Tower loomed above me, all steel skeleton and rusted bolts. The control building at the base was small, maybe 12 by 12. One door, windowless. I stepped inside, and everything inside was on. The console lights glowed faint green. The air was thick with the smell of ozone, like old electronics heating up. One of the reel-to-reel decks was spinning. Another was still ejecting a loop of tape, as if it had just played. But here's the thing. There's no power in that building. The tower isn't on the grid. No generator, no battery. I checked twice. Still, the console buzzed like it had been used an hour ago, and the speakers kicked in. A familiar tone, our dispatch signal from back at headquarters. Then my call sign, Unit 36, Officer Volek. Then my voice, but it wasn't any call I remembered making. In the recording, I sounded panicked. Winded. Control, I've got a visual on suspect. North Tower, moving toward structure, requesting backup. There was a pause, some distortion. Then again, my voice. There's something inside. I don't think it's human. And then, toward the end, please someone help me. It's in here with me. I stood there frozen, listening to a version of myself beg for help I never needed. Say words I never said. I've never made a call like that. Never been assigned to that location before that day. Never filed any report even remotely resembling it. But the voice was mine. I backed out slowly, not touching anything, not saying a word. I left the tower and didn't look back. When I got to the car, I tried to play back the audio from the phone recording. Nothing. Just static. I went back to the station and ran every file I could find. No reports under that call sign. No audio logs. I even checked dispatch backups. There was nothing. Since then, the dead frequency's been silent again. Like whatever came through burned itself out or got what it wanted. I haven't been back to that tower. I won't. Not alone. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm driving the perimeter, the radio makes a faint crackle. No numbers. No words. Just static. Waiting.